What are we talking about? Practice? We're talking about practice, man.
This is UnCleated with Garrett, Gibbs, and Jason Bishop.
In my opinion, that sucked.
We failed to make our coaching points and our points more compelling than their fat little girlfriend.
Oh my God, did he really just say that?
And go! UnCleated, Garrett Gibbs, Jason Bishop, right here on the Bishop Media Sports Network. Today we're talking Braves playoffs. We're going to break down the Georgia-Tennessee game. Going to look ahead for next week's top 25 college football action. Garrett and I are also going to give you our top 10. And before we get into it, Garrett, man, I think you might have started a revolution. You were talking last week about my tag list and me promoting the Southern Sports Edition via Facebook and all the people that are on my Facebook page that I literally will tag to a photo of a story pertaining to SSE and man, since you made that comment, I can't tell you how many people have come up to me this past week and be like, hey, yeah, I was listening to the show and you know I get tagged just as much as Garrett does, by the way. So, man, it seems like you started a little revolution. I don't know if I appreciate it or not, but yeah, thanks. I think.
Well, I guess any attention is better than no attention.
Yeah.
So so they say anyway.
And
as long as they didn't give you, the look. If they didn't give you the look, then you're okay. You're still good. So.
I get so many looks, I don't know what they mean.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Well, let's get into it.
The Atlanta Braves.
Game 1, not so great. Game 2, a little better. Let's take a look at Game 1. We touched on it last week with their starting pitching that we thought that might be an issue, and Clayton Kershaw exposed that.
Yeah, their offense struggled big time against Kershaw, and let's face it. I mean, Medlin wasn't sharp either. I think he made some critical mistakes, and the bullpen came out, and I think they ended up giving up 1 run, from the 5th inning on. But it was just he dug a hole. They dug themselves a hole early on that was pretty much insurmountable. I mean, it was 5-0 right off the jump. I believe Medlin gave up a 3-run bomb, and when you do that, I just this is the playoffs, and when you do that, when you dig a hole like that, it's just 9 times out of 10 you're not going to come back.
Especially when you're going against the pitching that you're going against in the playoffs. Yeah, you dig yourself a 4-1, 5-1 hole, especially with Clayton Kershaw on the mound. Good luck. The thing that's concerning to me. A lot of times, players that play in the postseason a good bit will get tagged as clutch postseason players or chokers in the postseason.
Yep.
I know it's still early. We have a small sample size. Chris Medlin has now made 2 starts in the playoffs. Of course, the infamous infield pop fly rule game. And then Game 1, and he didn't look nearly as good as he pitched in the second half of both of those seasons. So right. I certainly hope he's not heading down that road where great regular season player, not so much in the postseason. But so far, that's what we've seen.
Yeah, it is. I think you have special guys that just, they when the postseason starts, they either turn it up or they don't. And Medlin so far, like you said, small sample size, so you can't be too critical of the guy just yet.
Not yet.
But what you have seen is just that. I mean, he just has not been their standout marquee pitcher in the playoffs.
You think about, when you think Atlanta Braves, you think pitching traditionally.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And that theme kind of has been the undertone of the Braves' playoff runs, even throughout the 90s and early 2000s, is especially pitching. Really solid pitching from star guys in the regular season. But then when they get the postseason, Tom Glavine's a perfect example. He pitched well in the 95 playoffs, which they won the World Series. He was clutch then. But then you look at his numbers through the rest of the time, not so much. Greg Maddux John Smoltz is a little different story. He's probably the best playoff pitcher the Braves have ever had. But it's just interesting to me that you take Smoltz out of the equation, and every other superstar pitcher the Braves have had, when they get into the playoffs, they haven't been as effective. It's just interesting.
Yeah, and that is an interesting point that you bring up, and don't forget too, the Braves pitching is awfully young. You know, they have Medlin's in his mid-20s or so, and then you have a couple of rookies on it. You know, Mike Minor and Julio Teheran, who are. I think the sky's the limit with those two guys. I think they're only going to get, better and better. And this playoff exposure, whether they get exited out early here by the Dodgers or not, really doesn't matter. But they're getting that exposure, they're getting that experience to see how the playoffs are, see how they operate, and they're going to get better. I mean, I just think that next year they'll be that much better, and. You're probably going to start, see another run, probably not like they did in the, all throughout the 90s and into the 2000s where they won, 16 straight,
14 straight division titles, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to see a run like that, but I mean, I think they're going to be serious contenders, in the playoffs for years to come.
Here's what's interesting. Freddie Gonzalez has, we were discussing it where we thought it was going to be Medlin, Minor, Teheran. Freddie Gonzalez actually is going to go with 4 guys. He added Freddie Garcia, so he's going to go with a 4-man rotation in the short series. And so, I started thinking about that, and I thought, it kind of dawned on me. It's like, wow, that's a good move. The reason it's a good move is. Where the Dodgers have Clayton Kershaw at the top of their rotation, that elite starter, and likely he's going to end up pitching on short rest in certain situations because he's that good. Well, the Braves don't have that. Mm-hmm. So why not just go ahead and stretch out your rotation? You've got a lot of depth, and let these guys pitch on normal rest. So where if you're pitching against a Clayton Kershaw on short rest or an Adam Wainwright on short rest, you've got a full rested guy, which might give you an advantage. So I think that's a good move.
Yeah, and and always in the playoffs, when you shrink down the rotation, your bullpen grows.
Right.
So you're still going to have a Malholm and Alex Wood in the bullpen. Two pretty solid left-handers. So yeah, I mean it's an interesting move. But I see the point. Let's just say, let's just make sure we win the games, because I think that, you're probably going to face Kershaw twice. If it goes 4 games, you're definitely going to see him again. And, Braves going to have to turn it around. They're going to have to beat an elite pitcher twice just to win the division series.
We'll see what happens. Now, this is UnCleated on the Bishop Media Sports Network. Now, of course, the Braves have already dropped one to Kershaw. You're right. You're definitely going to see him, later in the series if it goes that far. So odds are they're going to have to beat him at some point.
Yeah, I think you're going to see him again in Game 4 if it goes that far. I don't see how they why they wouldn't try to go ahead and put the series away. Yeah. But then again, that gives them that kind of puts them at a disadvantage. Talking about the Dodgers, because now you've used. The put-away game in the series, now you're going to have a short rest. Who are you going to start in the next series? Now you got Kershaw arguably going again on short rest starting Game 1 of that series, and that kind of puts them, somewhat of at a disadvantage.
We really saw a contrast of 2 different styles, the team's strengths and their weaknesses. Game 1, Los Angeles got up early big, and that was kind of, their MO as far as being aggressive and doing everything they do well. Now in Game 2, Atlanta turned the tables. They got a lead early, had their starter go 6-7 innings, and then they turned it over to that bullpen and said, "Here you go, hold it," and they did. So that's the Braves' recipe for success, and Game 1 was the Dodgers' recipe for success. So they both played their types, one game to their types of games so far.
Yeah. In Game 2 that you referred to, the bullpen did, they did hold them. Gave up 2 more runs. Minor came out and he gave up 8 hits. That kind of stands out in my mind. I'd like to, see him hold them to, 6, 5, 4, somewhere around in there.
Or just pull a Clayton Kershaw and holding it to 3 hits.
Yeah. I mean, is that so much to ask? I mean, come on now. But they didn't come in bunches. So I mean, he only gave up one run, which was as good as you can ask anybody in the playoffs. And I think he came out and had a solid start. And the bullpen, they did their job. And of course, once you get into the ninth inning, you got the best closer in the game, Craig Kimbrell. If they can play their style of baseball like you alluded to, then I think the Braves will be fine. But their offense, scoring 3-4 runs a game, I just don't think it's going to do it in the series.
I hear you. We're up against a break. We got to get out. This is UnCleated on the Bishop Media Sports Network.
When Heron Document Systems opened, a connected copier meant it was simply plugged into the wall. Well, things have changed. 30 years later, the copier is the focal point of document workflow. It's not just the printer, fax, and scanner. It's much more. In the medical office, it's integrating patient information with their electronic medical records. In the legal office, it's performing OCR, Bates stamping, and tracking expense for client billing. All of these changes over the past 30 years, and Heron Document Systems is still here. Still, providing your business with the best solution for your document and workflow pains. Every business experiences those pains, and that's okay. With Heron Document Systems, there is a better solution. Visit HeronDS.com for more information. Heron Document Systems in Brunswick, the efficient solution for your business.
And welcome back to UnCleated. Garrett Gibbs, Jason Bishop on the Bishop Media Sports Network. Now, Garrett, we were at a game Friday night, the high school football game, and your boy had a little accident. Is he okay?
Yeah, I haven't had to put him on the IR yet. He took a little spill down the bleachers. We were coming out of the press box actually. I had to feed him. The boy eats more than the average horse does, I think. But we were coming out of the press box and get about halfway down the bleachers. Well, he's an 8-year-old kid, so he starts kind of jumping, getting a little cute, jumping down the bleachers, and before I could say anything, he's face first sliding down the bleachers on the stomach. So he got him a nice little scrape on the shin, a little small one on his elbow. But other than that, he's fine. He'll be ready to go for his football game Monday night. So, but my main concern with that one is as soon as he fell, I thought, wow, my wife is going to kill me when I get home. It can't take him anywhere without something happening. So I kind of made the decision, Jason, that because that happened right after halftime.
Right.
So I had a lot of time to stew over this, and I made the decision. I don't think I was going home. I just don't think I was going. I was going to just wait till he healed up.
Like 3 weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think she would think anything.
Just vanished for 3 weeks. That's funny.
Georgia at Tennessee.
Well, speaking of injuries, Garrett, Georgia suffered a ton of injuries against Tennessee.
They survived, but I think the price they paid for the victory is going to, hurt them pretty significantly down the line. Because they got some pretty big games coming up. I think Missouri comes to town next week, and don't forget you still got that blue and orange team down there in Gainesville that on November the 2nd, I believe. And it looks like they're getting better and better every week, talking about Florida. And they're still on the schedule. So I just hope that Georgia can get healthy leading up to that game.
The Georgia-Tennessee game, obviously the majority of our friends, being in the part of the country that we live in, are Georgia fans. And so the big win against LSU, all week I heard everyone that runs in our circles tell me how badly Georgia was going to beat Tennessee, and I kept having to remind them, look, Georgia's not going to blow Tennessee out. They're going to be in Knoxville, coming off that big win. There's going to be a letdown factor, and Tennessee's going to be. This is the biggest game they've played to this point. Granted, I know you play a lot of big games in the SEC, but to this point, this is the best team they've had come to them.
Right, yeah, because they went down there and lost to Florida, so the next one on the schedule was Georgia. Probably going to be the biggest one they play all year. And, yeah, they were ready, definitely. And I think on paper, Georgia should blow Tennessee off the field. I mean, I as long as they're healthy. Well, that all changed Saturday, but I think on paper they should blow Tennessee off the field. But it seems to be traditionally with a and I hate to bash him, but a Mark Richt coached Georgia Bulldog team that after a big win, no matter who they play the next week, they seem to have a letdown factor. And it's cost them some games.
I wonder if it's not just big games, if it's just games. You think about it, take the large sample size that Mark Richt has. Take last year's South Carolina game out of the equation. Let's just chunk that in a trash can. So don't even count that. But every other game, in my opinion, if Georgia's an underdog, they seem to play higher.
Yeah.
They seem to play up to the level of competition. But inversely, if Georgia's a heavy favorite, North Texas, they play down to their competition. And I think that's what happened with and it is. It just seems to be every year a constant MO of this team where they don't set a bar, they don't stay at the same level all year long. There are a lot of ups and downs, ebbs and flows, but it just seems like if Georgia's playing a better team, they play to their level. If Georgia's playing a team that they're far better than, they play down to their level.
Yes, they do, and and they had a special teams blunder Saturday that kept Tennessee in the game. So against LSU the week before, they didn't. They pretty much were spot on special teams, and they just let Tennessee hang around. I think when they went up, had a 17-3 lead, and then they started losing players. They started. I mean, I think they lost two receivers. I know, and their backup tailback in Keith Marshall, and I think that does something to you as well. But then a couple of plays later, Tennessee's tied the ball game up, and it just seemed like Georgia they clawed and scratched and everything just to eke out that win in overtime.
And congratulations, because of those injuries, we saw Brendan Douglas have to play a lot from Augusta, and we also saw J.J. Green, a fellow Camden right down the road, a Camden product who actually has been on the cover of the Southern Sports Edition. In case you're not familiar with the Southern Sports Edition, it's a publication, a sports publication based in Southeast Georgia, Northeast Florida, which is owned by our parent company, Bishop Media Sports Network. And J.J. Green has been on the cover of the Southern Sports Edition, so absolutely rooting for J.J. It was great to see him put up the numbers he did. And if you haven't seen his numbers, hop on the internet and look at the numbers he put up there. They're pretty good.
Yeah, they're pretty good. The guy's a little small to be a halfback. But he's like a stump, man, and he's got moves like Barry Sanders. I mean, the guy he's constantly, he makes guys miss. He reminds me of a lot of Barry Sanders. They're similar in stature.
Yeah. And not getting too far off subject, I'm going to say this, we'll get back to the Georgia-Tennessee game. I've had the opportunity to be involved in high school football for about 10 years, so I've had an opportunity to see a lot of different guys, a lot of talented different kids come through and play. J.J. Green is the best high school football player that I've ever had the benefit of watching play.
Wow.
Moving on.
Good deal.
Yeah, so the injuries, once again, Bennett with the knee. So we're concerned about that. Keith Marshall.
Yeah, he might be. If he's done for the year, I know you still got Gurley out. That he's probably going to come back in the next week or so. But that's definitely a big blow.
You know that you're having an injury bug bitten game when your punter gets a concussion. How does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, you see, a guy comes out there yesterday or Saturday, and he's talking, they're talking about the captain of special teams has a concussion, and I'm like, what did he do? I mean, did he fall off his motorcycle or something? I mean, how does that happen?
What's funny is I don't know if you've seen the commercial. I don't even know who the commercial is for, but the backup punter of a college team is at some grill out. And the guy that's hosting the grill out was like, what are you doing here? Don't you have a game? He was like, dude, I'm the backup punter. When does a backup punter ever get to... And right before he says play, the people on TV are like, oh, and it looks like such and such just tore a knee. And he stops, he just grabs his helmet and walks out. It reminded me of that commercial.
Yeah, he got the call.
He was like, "Save me a brat."
Now I'll be back in just a little bit. Well, Marshall Morgan, kicked a game-winning field goal in overtime, and well, I can't say enough about that guy. He's a kicker, and Georgia has a history of, if they don't have much else, they get kickers. It was just I just hope for the Georgia fans out there that this was the letdown game of the year, and I hope they just can recover from the injury, get healthy, and move up from here.
This isn't a game that Georgia won. This is a game that Georgia survived.
Yes, it is.
And I think that I don't want to put the cart before the horse, or as I like to say, I don't want to sell my farm before I milk my cows. But in every national championship season that a team has had, they have one of these games where they should have lost. They had every reason to lose, and it looked like they were going to lose, and somehow, some way, they managed to escape with a win.
And how big was that play where Neal, the Tennessee running back, was diving for the pylon and loses the football? I mean, you're talking about inches.
And it completely, that play handed Georgia the win.
It did.
That play by itself. That's what I mean. And and I was watching the Tennessee game with some friends when in regulation, when Tennessee got the ball inside the 10, and they were down by the score was still tied, actually. And I said to them, I was like, Tennessee is not going to score. This is where Tennessee figures out a way to lose games. Granted, they still scored, but coming back to my point, just in overtime, some crazy thing happens that disallows Tennessee from winning a big football game.
Yeah, and I think the no turnovers by Georgia, I think that helped a bunch. I mean, Murray he threw 3 TDs, which is, that's great for any college QB. But they didn't, eat them up through the air like they have been, and they did eat them up on the ground. So I mean, it was just a hard fought game. A lot of people went down with injuries, and we'll just see what they do next week.
Yeah, next week's going to be a good test. Missouri comes in undefeated. We're gonna get out. We're up against a break. When we get back, we're gonna give our top 25 roundup for next week. Pick some games. This is UnCleated on the Bishop Media Sports Network.
When Heron Document Systems opened, a connected copier meant it was simply plugged into the wall. Well, things have changed. 30 years later, the copier is the focal point of document workflow. It's not just the printer, fax, and scanner. It's much more. In the medical office, it's integrating patient information with their electronic medical records. In the legal office, it's performing OCR, Bates stamping, and tracking expense for client billing. All of these changes over the past 30 years, and Heron Document Systems is still here. Still, providing your business with the best solution for your document and workflow pains. Every business experiences those pains, and that's okay. With Heron Document Systems, there is a better solution. Visit HeronDS.com for more information. Heron Document Systems in Brunswick, the efficient solution for your business.
Hey there, UnCleated, Jason Bishop, Garrett Gibbs, the Bishop Media Sports Network. Garrett, we had discussed getting into the top 25, but one of our one of the people that kind of runs in our group of our group of friends and coworkers. He's actually the photographer for the Southern Sports Edition, which we've discussed that. Yesterday was his birthday, so Brian Peoples, happy birthday! And so we went out.
Old man.
Yeah, so we went out, and we went to a little bar, restaurant / bar, had some good food, and then stayed for a few drinks afterwards. And I want to know, because it seems like, and I'm not a big bar person, so don't get me wrong. It's not like I'm in a bar every weekend. I really don't do that. But when I go,
you sure?
I'll say this though: when I go,
I'm gonna call him out. When
I go, brother, I go.
You go all out.
That's right. So we're in this bar, and it just seems like every time I'm in a bar, the same woman, not exactly the same woman, but the same type. But there's that older woman that's there that that will literally walk up to a guy that's 20, 30 years younger than her and ask to dance. And and so you're always like, no. You want to say no. You do. But out of respect, sure, I'll dance with you. And it's always a mistake. Because you get out of the dance floor, and then she'll lean in your ear and she'll whisper something she's got no business whispering to you, and you're just like, "What is wrong?" And then like I even got groped. So yeah, this woman.
How do you respond to something?
I don't even know. But
you just turn around and just, hey, I gotta go.
I gotta go. And one of my buddies fell wrath to it last night, and his wife let him go. His wife was sitting right next to him. She said, "Yeah, he'll go out with you." And we're watching on the dance floor, and she's just all grinding on him, and we're just dying and laughing because his face was just like, "Oh my God, get me out of here!"
You will never have to worry about that from my wife. I promise you that. She'd be over there trying to fight somebody. What? I'll break your hip.
Top 25.
Well, speaking of fighting, I don't think it's going to be much of a fight between Alabama and Kentucky this week. I'm going to take Alabama big, even though they're on the road.
Oh, yeah.
Oregon and Washington. Washington put up a really good fight against Stanford. I didn't think that game was going to be close. They're going to have Oregon at their place. Garrett?
Well, I think it's going to be closer than everybody thinks, but I think Oregon pulls it out in the end.
I'm really intrigued by this game.
You know what? As well as Washington played against Stanford, and I think a couple of bounces go their way. They beat Stanford.
Yeah.
Okay. But after that game, and now they got to come in and face Oregon. It's going to be some of that, I guess, letdown factor. I don't know that they can be up 2 weeks in a row with two big games like that. I just don't see it happening.
I think that the atmosphere is going to be very intense because, like I said, Oregon's coming to them. And I think that atmosphere that Oregon's going to walk into is going to keep that game close, but Oregon's got too much talent. They do win, but it's close. Boston College goes to Clemson. I don't see any problems here for Clemson, Garrett.
Well, Boston College put up a good game against FSU a couple of weeks ago, and I just don't see this being a 59-14 game like many people are probably going to.
Do you think this game's going to be close?
I think Boston College is going to hang 24 on them.
Really?
Yes,
okay.
I do.
All right. Stanford at Utah. Moving on.
Yeah.
Missouri goes to or comes to, depending on where you are, Athens to play the Georgia Bulldogs, who again escaped from Knoxville with a win.
Given the fact, still waiting to see what the reports are on the injuries and how long they're going to be out. Got to see what Todd Gurley's going to do if he's going to be able to play in Saturday's game. That's my upset pick of the week.
Oh, really?
Yes.
You're taking Mizzou over Georgia.
I'm going to take Mizzou over Georgia. I think they're going to have a chip on their shoulder when they come in. I think they're going to take some notes from the Tennessee game. And I just don't know that Georgia's going to have the firepower to stay with them.
Okay.
And don't forget that Missouri, that no-huddle offense, they do not huddle, period. They're like Oregon. They're like a mini-me Oregon.
Game's in Athens, and you're still taking Mizzou.
I'm going to take Mizzou.
Holy. Texas A&M goes to Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss might keep this close. Texas A&M still gets the win.
Yeah, definitely.
Game of the week. Florida at LSU. I'm taking the Bayou Bengals.
Yeah, the only thing that would make this even more of a spread is if it wasn't a 3:30 game, it was a 7:30 game in Baton Rouge. I got LSU in that one.
This is the part of the season now where Florida is going to start really feeling the pressure because it gets tough.
Yes.
Oklahoma versus Texas in the Red River rivalry. I like the Red River Shootout. It sounds cooler, but they won't let me say it anymore. They said it's not what they call it. But you know what? Red River Shootout. Bam. What are you going to do?
Yeah,
I just said
it. That's more fitting to this game because, in years past, it's been exactly that, a shootout. So I like Oklahoma in a very close one. I think Texas comes in. This is their season on the line. This is arguably their season and Mac Brown's future on the line. I think they get up for this game. I just think Oklahoma's got too much for them.
I think they get up for this game and it doesn't matter, and Oklahoma still blows them out. I just don't think they've got the talent. Cal goes to UCLA. Hold the phone on UCLA. Nobody's paying them any attention. They're quietly going under the radar. They have slipped into the top 15 on the rankings. Some polls have them in the top 10.
Yep.
No one's paying them any attention over in the Pac-12. Cal gets their shot in Los Angeles. UCLA beats them.
Yes, UCLA beats them, and like we touched on it in last show. UCLA's getting all of USC's talent, so watch them guys over there.
South Carolina travels to Arkansas in Fayetteville. I don't see any trouble here with the Gamecocks.
No.
Northwestern goes to Camp Randall in Wisconsin. Here is my upset pick.
Wow.
Wisconsin beats Northwestern.
Yeah, that's really not a bad pick, Jason. I think Northwestern coming off a hard-fought game against the Buckeyes, they're up for an upset for sure.
Yeah. Baylor travels to Kansas State. No problem there for the Bears.
No.
Michigan travels to Penn State. This is going to be a close football game. Michigan gets it done in the end, but close football game.
Yeah, I think Michigan gets it done in the end. They surprised me last Saturday when they just blew Minnesota off the field. I had Minnesota in that game, so they surprised me. I think they get it done in the end.
Yeah, and by the way, Indiana with a huge win over Penn State this last week. And speaking of huge wins, what Florida State did to Maryland was merciless.
Wow. That's only setting the stage for the biggest matchup of the year in the ACC period in Clemson FSU, and that happens on October the 19th.
All right. Iowa State goes on the road to Texas Tech. Texas Tech gets it done.
Yes, definitely.
All right. Well, once again, we're up against a break. We got to get out. This is UnCleated on the Bishop Media Sports Network. When we get back, top 10.
When Heron Document Systems opened, a connected copier meant it was simply plugged into the wall. Well, things have changed. 30 years later, the copier is the focal point of document workflow. It's not just the printer, fax, and scanner. It's much more. In the medical office, it's integrating patient information with their electronic medical records. In the legal office, it's performing OCR, Bates stamping, and tracking expense for client billing. All of these changes over the past 30 years, and Heron Document Systems is still here. Still, providing your business with the best solution for your document and workflow pains. Every business experiences those pains, and that's okay. With Heron Document Systems, there is a better solution. Visit HeronDS.com for more information. Heron Document Systems in Brunswick, the efficient solution for your business.
And we're back, UnCleated. Garrett Gibbs, Jason Bishop on the Bishop Media Sports Network, where we're going to get into our top 10. So, Garrett, I actually did have my hand slapped last week for stealing your parade and going first. So that I've been told that obviously you went and tattletaled on me to the producers. So
they're going to side with me this week. So.
Yeah, they're going to let you go first, and I got fussed at.
Well, I took them to lunch, so they're in my corner this week. So.
Garrett's top 10.
What can I say? I'm going to start down at the 10 spot and work my way up to number 1, which I think is no surprise. But at number 10, I have the Hurricanes in Miami. I think they've just showed a lot this year, undefeated. They're my 10th best team in the country. At number 9, I still have A&M. You still got Johnny Manziel. Texas A&M, that is. You still got Johnny Manziel. I still think they're probably going to be a one-loss team by the end of the year. Number 8, I got LSU. No change, I don't think, from last week. 7, I actually dropped. I actually switched places with Georgia and Florida State. I have Georgia at 7, and I have Florida State at 6, which is relatively low considering what they did how they dismantled Maryland Saturday. Number 5, I got Ohio State. Number 4, I have Stanford. I think they got a key victory over Washington Saturday. And they're just, what can I say about them? They're physical. They got a lot of talent. It's going to be between them and Oregon, whoever wins the Pac-12. And that brings me to number 3. I have Oregon. And they haven't really played anybody just yet. They haven't really got into the meat of their schedule. So I have them at the number 3 spot.
Do they have meat in their schedule? Just curious.
Yeah, well, if they play, they're going to find out something Saturday when they play Washington. That's going to be a pretty good matchup for them, I think. But the game of the year is going to be Stanford. I mean, if they can get past Stanford, then you can say that they're top 3 in the country.
So maybe they have some Vienna sausage in there.
Yeah, just and they're getting there. Number 2, I actually moved Clemson all the way up to the 2 spot, which I think they were at 3 or 4 anyway. But I just think Clemson is second best team in the country. I think Taj Boyd, as long as you got him at the helm and staying healthy, they got a good shot at winning the ACC and being in the national championship at the end of the year. But they got to get past Florida State and of course Carolina if they want to continue their national championship hopes. And of course, number 1, I mean, to nobody's surprise, I got Alabama and the Crimson Tide. So, they haven't been, other than A&M, they haven't been really tested this year. They're going to get into, they still got LSU on the schedule. They still got Auburn. No matter what you say, no matter how bad Auburn is or how bad Alabama is or how good they are, it's the Iron Bowl. So, I mean, it could go either way. So, but until somebody knocks them off, no, they're still the consensus, unanimous number 1.
Jason's top 10.
Okay, so I'm producers. Do I have permission to go? Can I? Okay, good. They have now given me permission to do my top 10. Thanks.
We got enough time left. We ain't got but about 30 seconds. You better hurry up.
Typical. So I've gotten to the point with my top 10 where I am now looking at resume versus prestige and what the national media, where they're ranking these teams. I'm looking at what these teams have done to this point. So I'm going to have some teams in my top 10 that you might be like, oh my gosh, what's he doing? But then again, there are a lot of things that I do where people say, oh my gosh, what is he doing? I mean, I'm used to it, so no big deal. I'm gonna keep Louisville in my top 10. They're still undefeated. They're still winning games impressively. Until someone, I don't even think Louisville really has to lose a game to fall out of the top 10. I think if somebody just pushes them, because their schedule's so soft,
yep,
that it's going to hurt them. They basically have to roll everybody they play. Number 9, like you, I have Miami in my top 10. They fantastic job up to this point. Again, they're still holding up the win over Florida as their signature win, so they'll get opportunities to win some other big games down the road. I mentioned this earlier. UCLA has gone under the radar. No one is really paying them any attention, and all they have done is win, and they have won handily. And I've got them at number 8 in the country, undefeated over in the Pac-12. Sure, their schedule might not be as tough as some of the SEC teams, but they're undefeated. The only team that I have in my top 10 with a loss, probably as they should be, is Georgia.
Yep.
They survived Tennessee. I've got them at 7. They did drop down a spot because the Tennessee's not a very good football team. That's a team they should have bowled off the field, and they didn't do it. Number 6, Ohio State, the big win over Northwestern. Moving into my top 5, holy great googly moogly, what did Florida State do to Maryland?
They just dismantled them. I mean,
Did Maryland bring their college football team, or did they just bring the high school team from down the road? Because that's what it looked like. That's what it looked like Florida State was playing.
It did. Jameis Winston just ate them up.
That was ridiculous. Holy goodness. If Florida State's that good, again, is Florida State that good, or were we just wrong about Maryland and them being that bad?
Well, if you look at Maryland, what they did, undefeated so far, it was cupcake.
Okay.
Teams.
All right, sure.
So this was the first true challenge, and they didn't answer it.
Fail.
Epic.
Oregon is at 4. Man, I've got to see them play somebody, and the national media is just all over Oregon. Like they're like the national media is like the pretty girl everybody wants to take to prom. That's how they are with Oregon. I'm not there with them. I think they're really good, but I don't think they're the second best team in the country. I think Clemson beats Oregon. I really do.
Well, Oregon, being they have the luxury of playing in the Pac-12 where they don't have big, physical, fast That's how they are in the Southeast, where, you know, every time that Oregon has played, they've gone undefeated a couple of times, and every time they've matched up against, you know, an upper echelon SEC team, they get beat. I mean, and they don't just get beat by 2; they get beat by, you know, 15, 14, 15. So
we'll see. The big win Stanford had against Washington, I'm going to take them up to 3, jump them over Oregon, because I feel like that Washington is a really good football team. Oregon's going to have their chance. So, you know, we'll see. You know, I said that I think Clemson beats Oregon. That's why I've got Clemson at 2. The Clemson's look really good. Again, they're much like Miami, where they've got the one signature win that's holding them up, which is against Georgia. And then, you know, I'm with you. I hear you. Nobody's beaten Alabama. So they're the defending national champion. Do I think they've got chinks in the armor? Oh, yeah. They're very beatable. But so is everybody else.
yeah,
So Alabama number 1.
yep.
To recap, Bama, Clemson, Stanford, Oregon, Florida State, Ohio State, Georgia, UCLA, Miami, and Louisville round out my top 10.
Yeah, as I think, you know, Louisville's going to have a, you know, speaking of them, I still have Teddy Bridgewater. You know, he's going to be your front runner for your Heisman by the end of the year, I believe, if he stays healthy, because he's going to put up numbers that you know, they haven't seen in probably 20 years, because the kid, he has a very talented team around him, but they don't, you know, they're doing it against lower competition, so the opportunity for, you know, 400 and 500 yard games are every week.
Yeah.
You know, and 5-6 touchdowns through the air every week. I mean, you know.
Yeah. By the way, my birthday's Sunday.
Well, I'm glad to see you and Brian both joining the old man club before me, so it's good. I get to pick on y'all.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to get out. This has been UnCleated on the Bishop Media Sports Network.